And I really am proud of you. Well done, man. Stay the course. I just at a distance, I hear so many good things about what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Don. Again, your encouragement, it does mean a lot, not just because your father figure role, because you're in a similar job and you get
listen,
it, you know?
If you screw up, man, I'm going to fly to Cincinnati and I'm going to kick your behind, okay?
You can't even say ass, can you? You can say ass. Come on, let me hear you say kick your ass. Come on, Don.
It's just not in my vocabulary.
Welcome to the aggressive life. Dirt, sometimes I feel like this podcast is all about me. I just feel that sometimes.
I don't know why you feel that.
I tell you why I feel that, because I looked at my calendar last night before I went to bed, and I saw this piece on the calendar, and I thought, oh, that's going to be good. Oh, that's going to be really, really good. Dude, do you have any idea how important this guy is to me?
I don't. I would like for you to tell me how important he is to you.
Well, you actually probably have a little bit, because Book 5, Mark's the man that you've helped me out with. He's included in there early in the days of Crossroads, which is what's my day job, church I started and still lead to this day. We were taking off. We were grown like a weed in the early days, and weeds aren't necessarily healthy. Weeds aren't necessarily something that's beautiful, and we had a lot of stuff that was just out of control, and we brought this guy in every month. I think for a year, we brought him in to be with our senior leaders and our board for like a year, and it was intense. It was incredibly intense. His name is Kirk Cousins. I've referred to him before as Donald. I've referred to him as sexy. Whenever I call him sexy, he calls me handsome. He calls me handsome. And we joked around that I don't think that Don was a consultant for us. I think Don was an insultant. That's what he did. Like, just bring you in to insult you. and that's what he would do. And actually, this guy's had a profound impact on my life. We had a phone conversation, a couple of years ago. That's what it comes down to. I have guests on the aggressive life just so I can have another conversation with them. And he's just really, really, really fresh. I'm hoping he's going to go everywhere where I want him to go today. And if he's not, he'll tell me. He has no problem just drawing boundaries. A little intrigue for all of our listeners. One of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I've been following him very, very closely. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks is because it's Don's son, Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings. And so whenever guys producing great talent, and I don't mean just talent as far as on the field, for what I hear of Kirk Cousins, it looks like has a very strong faith and walking with Christ. There's something good about that. Don was one of the founders of arguably the most influential church in American history. It's very controversial today for some. That's actually very controversial in the 70s or in the 80s and 90s. Willow Creek Community Church. He's one of the founders and executive pastor there at Willow Creek. And man, he's been around the block many, many ways. And now he's back to just good old-fashioned pastoring all the way down in Florida. Welcome to the aggressive life, Kirk Cousins.
Brian, what an introduction. You haven't changed a bit, my friend.
Man, it's been many, many a year. I'm thinking for our listeners probably, very few of our listeners are pastors. This is not a pastor podcast. I don't even quote it as a faith podcast, but I'm a man of faith and I'm a pastor, that comes up a bit. Maybe we should start with the thing that's probably the most intriguing to the most number of people, and then you and I are going to get into the weeds on stuff, and it'll be fun for me. I don't know if it'll be fun for anybody else, but who cares? As long as it's fun for me, that's all that matters. Your son, give us the story. I always heard that you were Bill Hybels, your former friend, former pastor, used to say you were the greatest football coach you ever knew, and everyone would stand in line to be a part of your flag football teams. That was a goal of yours long term. I always heard that, and bam, here is where your son is. Talk about your love of football, your history of football, and how much of that impacted producing an NFL talent like your son.
Well, Brian, I don't know that I had a whole lot to do with producing an NFL quarterback. I will say that I left for college with the dream of being a coach. And I either wanted to be on the sidelines of a major university or a professional team coaching football or baseball. And those were the two sports that I had enjoyed the most growing up and playing. And, during my freshman year of college, God changed the desire of my heart. And I felt a calling to pursue what we know as ministry. And so I, in a sense, took up the dream of being a coach and put it aside. And little did I know that years later, God would give one child of three. We have three tremendous children, but one of them would grow up with a dream to play major college football. It was his dream when he was a young boy. And wouldn't you know it? Look what God has done. And here he is entering his 11th year in the NFL, his 8th as a starter quarterback. And I'm very proud of him, not only as a player, but more importantly, as a person. He's an outstanding young man, and my wife and I are thrilled with who he is as a person.
How often do you talk with him and hang out with him right now?
Well, we were just up there for a week over Thanksgiving. So we were there for the Cowboys game, which did not go well. And then we were there for the Patriots game, which did go well. So we were there for the week and really enjoyed it with he and his wife, Julie, and their two little boys.
Good. So you're trying to get to a good percentage of his games then still?
We get to about 7 or 8 of them. I've got this day job on Sundays that makes it a little bit difficult.
Right.
But we get to about 7 of them. And I get to all the Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, all the odd ones, if you will. And then a few of the Sunday afternoon games. So, yeah, and I talk to Kirk every week, sometimes more than once a week. He called me last night on the way home from work, as he calls it. And we had a good conversation about the day and what he's got going on.
Oh, that's cool.
We have a good relationship.
That's very cool. Well, you had a goal to be a coach. I know that in your personal time, your volunteer time, you used to coach football just as a pastime. I got to think you were having a lot of football conversation with Kirk growing up. Were you coaching his Pee Wee football? Were you I know you said you didn't do it. He didn't. He'd put the long hours on the field. But I'm sure if I had him on here, he could say, "Oh, my dad did this and my dad did that." Tell us about that.
Well, when he was obviously he's a very good athlete, and he played basketball through high school, played baseball through high school, played obviously football through high school, 3-sport athlete, and was good at all of them. But football was always what he loved. In fact, when he first started playing tackle football in 6th grade, was the first time he played tackle football. He played 2 years of flag, followed by football tackle in 6th grade. He would get up every Saturday morning and watch the movie Rudy. Over again and over again and over again. When he was probably 2 or 3 years old, Brian, he would carry a football around the house. My wife and I never handed him a football. He just, for some reason, gravitated to a football and carried it around. Anyway, when he was in 4th grade, he was going to have his, my wife said to him, "We're going to have a birthday party. What would you like to do?" And he said, "I'd like to invite my friends over and play football in the backyard and then have a party after it." So he did. And had a bunch of friends over, and I was looking out the kitchen window, and I was watching him throw the football. And as I'm watching, 4th grade now, I'm thinking to myself, this is not common. He's not only throwing the ball really well, he's hitting these guys on the dead run accurately. And I wasn't thinking, oh, he's going to be a big-time quarterback someday. I just thought, this is unusual. I mean, none of the other boys were doing what he was doing. It was just unusual. And even when he started playing flag football and when he began playing tackle in 6th grade, at that age, the teams don't throw the ball. Everybody just runs. Well, our team threw, and he threw effectively. And so as, time went on, he just obviously continued to throw, and he was a starting quarterback wherever he went. And, and so he was successful. And one thing led to another. And I did have the privilege in 6th grade, 4th, 5th grade in flag, 6th grade tackle first year of helping coach. And then I became his head coach in 8th grade and freshman year and JV year. So God gave me an opportunity, if you will, to live my dream in a much smaller way during those years, and obviously enjoyed doing it with Kirk.
So be honest. Come on now, Dad. How often do you give your son coaching advice, or did you wash your hands of that once he got to D1?
I don't give him advice. I ask him questions, And at the end of a game, I'll sometimes say to him, now what happened there? Or what about that? Or what about that? Because the complexity of the game is way beyond what the average person, including me, begins to understand. And when he gets into explaining what's going on, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if people only knew what you're having to do, even between every single play, what a quarterback in the NFL has to do mentally is incredible.
So when you say what happened there, it's not some innovative, manipulative way to get a message across. You're literally asking because you know it's more complicated than you realize.
Yeah, it is. And there are times when I would say, I don't understand why the coach would have you do that. And sometimes he'll say back, I wish we did it differently. And I say, well, do you talk to him about that? And, fortunately over the years, he's had a lot of coaches that he's had the freedom to talk to and give feedback to, including Kevin O'Connell, with whom he has a very good relationship right now. They're able to really dialogue back and forth, and Kirk's able to be very honest with him about what he thinks. Kevin's honest with him, and hopefully together, as a result of putting their minds both together, they're going to come out with the best possible plan.
Every NFL quarterback is under a good bit of scrutiny. As a dad, do you read the clippings? Do you read the headlines? Do you feel defense for your son? Or do you just realize, no, I can't even go there and hear what commentators are saying. I just got to shut it all down?
Well, to be honest with you, when I'm in the stadium watching games in person, I listen to worship music. I don't listen to what's going on in the stadium. And it helps keep me in perspective. It helps settle my mind because obviously I'm watching my son on the field is a very stressful kind of an experience, especially on 3rd and long or in the 4th quarter when you're down by 3 or by 7. And you know that if we don't drive down the field and score, it's going to be game over. Okay. So, and there are times even watching at home, I will turn the announcers off because I'm hearing them say things that I know they don't know what they're talking about. And I can't expect them to. In many cases, they're just coming in for a few days. They're not watching the Vikings every single week like I am. All right. So sometimes they'll say things and I just say, that's not accurate. And so if I find myself getting a little stressed, I just turn the volume off. And in other cases, like, for example, I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on really social media. I don't get I'm in Orlando. I don't get the Minneapolis papers. So although you can't avoid all of it, I don't hear a lot of it by choice.
Well, you're an intense guy, man. I mean, you are intense. You help build the, as I mentioned earlier, arguably the most influential church in American history, at least it has been in my lifetime. It was aggressive. It's called The Aggressive Life. Like, tell us some of the stories. Like, most of our people have never heard this. Just tell us the early stories of what you did and selling tomatoes and all that kind of stuff.
Well, when we first started the church, we had come out of a youth ministry. Just backing up a little bit in the story, the church I grew up in was in the middle of a neighborhood on 3 acres. All right, not even 3 acres. It had about 400 or 500 people. When I graduated from high school, the youth ministry was 1,200. It was twice the size of the church overall.
Wow.
Okay. Now, looking back,
for those who are listeners, a current day senior pastor is ecstatic if the student ministry is 20% of the weekend attendance.
Yeah. Well, the church was 400 or 500, and the youth ministry was 1,200. And so when Bill Hybels, who was the lead pastor, felt led to go start a church for adults out of that youth ministry, I took over the student ministry in the area that we were going to. Okay, and for the first year and a half, we didn't have any salaries of any kind. Everybody was a volunteer, and because we were coming out of a youth ministry, everybody was young. We only had probably 10, which you would consider to be adults. Okay, Bill's 25 years old. I was 20. I'm still going to college. A couple other guys on the staff are in the same age range, very young. We didn't have any money per se. We were renting a movie theater to put on our Sunday morning services. We were renting a little office space in an industrial complex for some ragtag offices. And, we were putting in long weeks. But God was moving. And the church grew very, very, very rapidly. And what we were doing programmatically was at that time really cutting edge. And as a result, a lot of people who had been disillusioned with the church were finding their way back.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like today every church has a drum set or a guitar. Having a guitar or a drum set in a church 3 decades ago, let alone 4 decades ago when you guys were doing that, was, I mean, you may as well put a Playboy centerfold up on the altar. You know, it was not accepted at all.
Yeah, it was unique. We had a guy and his wife in the church as volunteers who were putting together 3 to 5 minute media presentations every single week that fit with the message theme. The music was contemporary. That was, I guess, what you would call it for what churches were. We would have drama, sketches like Saturday Night Live kind of things that would be taking place in keeping with the message. And so, drama, contemporary music, media. In the mid-1970s, churches just weren't doing this. And as a result, there was a lot of curiosity about what we were doing. And because what we were doing, Brian, was just mainline Jesus. We weren't preaching a different gospel, as it's called, okay? We were just teaching the Bible, but we were doing it in creative ways that caused people to give their attention to it.
I think why this is so fascinating to me, Don, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, isn't that I'm fascinated by another group of people that builds a big organization. I think what I'm really fascinated when I hear those stories again, and you're not even done telling stories. I want to hear about the tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But here's where I'm going on this: is it's almost become a dirty word, but I'll just say it. It's the word evangelism. It's the word making proselytes. Oh my gosh, making proselytes, proselytizing. I mean, that's just an awful saying in our country today. But it's a thing in the Bible. Having proselytes, having disciples, bringing somebody into the fold, evangelism, and I just don't see it today. I'm not seeing it today. I'm just not. I look back at what made Christianity a dominant religion and a dominant blessing, with all the awful things that have come out of Christendom, like the Crusades and burning witches, all that stuff. Man, the world is a better place, but it was because of the evangelists. It was because of people like Hudson Taylor, who went over to China and had his hair look like a Chinese person, which was scandalous. It's because of Jim Rayburn, who started Young Life. And he just had this crazy, stupid-ass idea of, let's just buy big, expensive properties and take kids to camp in the summer. And a generation has been transformed. It's Bill Bright, who has the 4 spiritual laws and Campus Crusade for Christ, which is since called Cru. All these things were first-in-class innovation. Yep. What you're talking about here back in the mid-'70s, this was first-in-class innovation. And today, I'm just not seeing it, man. I'm seeing all of our innovation is going to reaching other Christians. I love Maverick City. It's great worship. I listen to it this morning all the time. But why is our best innovation, our best music is going to getting people from Hillsong and Bethel? I've not seen a new church start that didn't want to look like a better version of the one that started 20, 30 years ago. They're just new iterations. There's not any new. I'm not hearing a fresh vision of a missionary who's pouring out his life and taking rocks from half the Christian community because they can't understand them. I'm just not seeing it. So when I talk with you and I think about the stones you took, I'm like, man, we don't need to be doing that again in terms of multimedia. We've got that one licked, but I'm just not seeing people making aggressive moves. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, the culture, Brian, has changed so dramatically, and I'm just not sure nowadays that the attractional church is a tougher gig to do, okay? Because the culture has become so noisy and so creative and so out there with regard to mediums of communication, et cetera, social media and everything else. We didn't have the competing forces back in the day, all right?
Right.
I believe to a great degree what we have to do now is we've got to go out to a world that isn't attracted, and we've got to show them something in us that is attractive, okay? When you stop to think about it, everybody is an evangelist, all right? So hang with me for just a second on this, okay? Go to a person who's a complete atheist, all right? God is not even on the radar of their life, okay? They go see a movie that they love. What do they do after seeing a movie that they love?
Tell people.
They go tell people about it, right? You go to a restaurant and you have a great experience at a restaurant. What do? You tell people about it. It may be that at the core of it, we don't have enough people getting excited about knowing Jesus.
Yeah.
Because if they got excited about knowing Jesus, then maybe just like they would do with a good movie or a good restaurant, they would go tell somebody else about Jesus.
Yeah.
We don't live with conviction. We don't live with an enthusiasm to tell the story of Jesus. And as a result, our lukewarmness, if you will, is having a lukewarm effect on the society around us. Because if we really believed what we say we believe, how can we not be sharing it with other people?
Right. And that's the answer. You really don't believe it.
Yeah. See, and the fact of the matter is, when we first started with youth ministry and it grew as rapidly as it did, the reason it grew as rapidly as it did was because kids would go back to their high schools and their life would have been changed. And as a result, their friends would see that and they would say, oh, you got to come to this youth group that I've been going to. Okay. Well, when the church started, people ask the question, well, how did the church ever start? Okay. Well, here's what happened. We had the whole youth ministry broken into teams. So of the 1,200 kids, we had 16 teams, okay, coming from different high schools in the Chicago suburbs and things. All right. Well, in the last year or so, the youth ministry, we would have parent nights. And parents would be invited to come to watch what was going on, to be observers, okay? What happened was, at the end of those nights, parents would come to Bill afterwards and they would say things like, I had to come tonight. My kid has changed for the better. And I had to find out, what in the world were you doing here that has had such a positive impact on my kid? Or they would say, you know what? I haven't been to church in 20 years. I don't have good memories of church, but I got more out of tonight than I ever got out of the church that I used to go to. Do you know of a church service like this for adults, for me? Mm-hmm. Well, Bill began to hear that over and over and over again. And that's when he then talked to me as I was a freshman in college. And I said to him, I'm feeling called into ministry. I'm going to see what the Lord has in mind. He said, well, I'm thinking about starting a church. And I said, what do you mean, like with adults? And he said, yeah. And then he told me a couple of those little stories I just told you. And he said, so I'm going to start a church to reach the parents of the kids that we're reaching in the youth ministry.
I saw you for a good period of time, a few years, every month. We'd catch up. You'd press into me. You'd spank me. You'd encourage me. You'd coach us. It was really, really good. And then that kind of season came to an end. We didn't talk with one another for a while. And then next thing I know, you're senior pastor at a church. It's pretty big and growing at an age when most people are thinking about hanging it up. Tell us about how that came about. Why? Shouldn't you be retired and doing nothing right now other than watching your son play?
I did just turn 66, Brian, and I know I look like it, okay?
No, you don't act like it, man. You look good. You've always been bald, so your eyebrows are a little bit bushy.
Because when I first started with you, I had some hair, but I think working with you, I lost some of it while I was going.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'd written a book on leadership. I had written some materials to help train leaders in the church specifically. And I was just doing leadership coaching, all around the country, similar to what I had done with you. I came to this church in Orlando and at the invitation of the senior pastor and began to do some training. And what happened was a series of circumstances unfolded and they kept upping my involvement. Such that I went from a couple days a month to 5 days a month to 10 days a month. And then they were asking me, would you come here full time? And I didn't feel led to do that. But this went on for a few years, and I believe God was using me. Well, then some things unfolded in the life of the senior pastor such that he chose for personal reasons to resign back in 2013. And the elders said to me, would you be willing to step in and take over on an interim basis? And my wife and I prayed about it. I was 56, 57 at the time. And I said, yes, I feel led to do that. And then a few months later, they said, could we take the interim tag off? And would you just be the lead pastor? So I've been here, and I'm still here. And while I don't have any immediate plans to step aside, I do see a finish line somewhere in sight, if you will. And so the elders and I are talking about next steps.
So you step in at the age I'm at right now. Basically, I don't know, you could view it as a startup, a rehab, a turnaround, just taking the next level, whatever it is. I mean, you lose a senior leader and you come in. Don, generally, people are not looking for that kind of assignment at 56, 57. How much of your ability to take that assignment was based on your personal habits of taking care of yourself? I mean, you look good. You have the same fire and energy you have right now. Like, talk about how you're maintaining your fire at age 60. Would you say 66?
66.
So what's your thing?
I don't feel 66. Brian, the American notion of retirement, that's a no-go for me, okay? There may become a time where I'll transition from this specific role, but, the Lord's given me energy. The Lord's given me, I believe, a calling. He gave me an opportunity. I prayed about it, sensed that He was in it. I had been already leading in the church in a significant way for a few years, and as a result, I just sensed God's hand was in it. And so when you sense God's hand is in something and on your involvement, I want more of that, right? I want more of that. And so when the door opened, I walked through it. And I do try and take care of myself in the sense that my wife keeps me eating right. I have had a bout with cancer back in 2015. Was out for several months due to that. But apart from that, I exercise regularly and like I said, I don't feel 66. I feel like, God's given me strength and energy and I enjoy my staff. I enjoy who I work with. So,
but you recognize what I'm talking about, right? There's not a lot of people looking for a new daunting assignment in their late 50s.
No. And even at the time, the elders said to me, if we were just going to go look for a lead pastor, we probably wouldn't look for someone at your age. However, we have a sense that God has you here for such a time as this. What do you think? And I believe God had me here. It was a difficult transition for the church. The senior leader had been here 28 years, and he had made some personal life choices that forced him to make a choice to resign. So it was a very sudden shift.
So the problem, Don, is you're the problem. So you're around this guy, he detonates his life. You're around Bill Hybels, he detonated his life. What's the common thread here? It's Don Cousins. That's the problem. In fact, you were coming around me because you wanted to detonate me. I got out while I was just barely ahead of things. Don Cousins' face is red and his scalp is red right now. Come on, that's funny. That's funny.
In the beginning, you called me your insultant.
You've been around. This is not a pastor podcast, but let's go here because it's very, very rare for someone to be around your wisdom and longevity and integrity. And I mean, you're going to finish strong. You really are.
That's the goal.
What would you say to those of us who are in our 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s? About energy management, about how to finish well, about just any of that stuff. Just pour into us.
Brian, at the very foundation of living successfully, if I can call it that, I would define it as the ability to manage your life to the glory of God. We are called to steward our life. And that begins with me as a person. It begins with stewarding my talents, and gifts that God's given me. It's stewarding my marriage. It's stewarding our 3 children. It's stewarding the possessions that God has given us. It's stewarding the job that God has given us to His glory, doing it, okay? And I think what happens is we lose sight of the fact that we've been called to steward, all right? And to manage what God has entrusted to us. You know, one of the things that I've said to Kirk, because obviously he makes a little more money than you and I make. At least I should say he makes more money than me.
Yeah,
maybe not,
I mean, I'm
maybe
at a different
not
level.
more money than you.
No, he makes way more than me.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've said to him, you know, since the journey ever began, is I said, you know, Kirk, God has given you a platform. He's given you abilities, unique abilities, all right, of what you do. There's only 32 people in the world who do it, okay? And even of the 32, half the teams wish they had somebody else, okay? You're in a place of great privilege and responsibility. You are a steward, okay? You don't own it. You're where you are because of what God gave you. Steward your life in a way that honors God, okay? And, you know, if you don't steward your life in a way that honors God, that at some point in time, Brian, the wheels are going to come off somewhere. The wheels are going to come off morally. The wheels are going to come off financially. The wheels are going to come off in terms of ego. The wheels are going to come off in terms of marriage, kids, something. The wheels are going to come off, okay? So job number 1 is manage your life in a way that honors God, okay? And then on the heels of that is the platform upon which all leadership is built, which is example. If you're not living it by example, then your ability to lead is greatly diminished. It's from the platform of example that you have the integrity, if you will, to be able to call others to follow you.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day, Carey Nieuwhof podcast. He's got a great podcast for Christian leaders. And he had on, what was her name? I try to get it right. Kayla Steckline. You might have you ever heard of her?
I've heard the name, yeah.
So her husband was pastor, started a church. It was really popping and growing. Then he killed himself about 2 years ago. And boy, she really opened up and talked about, you know, she certainly was not dishonoring to her husband's memory, but she was saying things that were very helpful for people like me of what was going on behind the scenes, or just his outlook on leadership and ministry. He said things like, I wish that he wouldn't have worked 7 days a week. I wish that. I wish that he wouldn't have had to go into the office and on Saturdays and feel like he had to memorize his message. I wish that he would have had a team of teachers and he didn't feel like everything was on him. I mean, she kind of rattled through this, and basically what you're talking about, unfortunately, he wasn't able to steward his life very well and had a very tragic end. And you're encouraging us right now, wherever we are, to start stewarding our life well from where we are right now.
If success number 1 is steward your life in such a way that when you stand before God, He's going to say to you, hey, you stewarded what I gave you well, okay? We get way too caught up in other things, okay, that are ultimately not nearly as important in life. It's a thrill to me, for example, and I got, 3 great kids that by God's grace, they're all my wife and I have a great relationship with them, and they're doing well in life, etc. Kirk obviously is most well known. Brian, if today he were a successful NFL quarterback, but was not walking with God, if he had no interest in stewarding his finances in a way that honors God, if he was not, committed in his marriage the way he is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, do you know what that would do to my joy level in watching him as a quarterback?
Right. Kill it, right.
It would kill it. There would still be a measure of joy. But the real measure of joy is seeing the way he handles himself with the media and things. I asked him a question. He threw a pick 6 one game several years ago, okay? And I said to him after the game, what happened on that play? And he said, so-and-so didn't make his block. And I said, you mean he missed it? He said, no, he chose to not make it. I said, how do you know? He said, because he ran right by the guy that he was supposed to block. And if he doesn't block that guy, that guy's going to intercept the pass and he's going to return it for a touchdown, which is what he did. Okay? Now, Brian, does anybody today know that other than him, me, and probably his coaches? No. Because Kirk never went to the media, didn't stand up in front of the media after the game when they said to him, hey, you threw a pick six. What's going on here? Okay? You have never heard Kirk in 15 years of playing public football ever cast blame on anybody. That, as a father, gives me great joy because it speaks of the fact that he's stewarding the position that he's in.
Yeah.
Okay? And as pastors, for example, we have to steward our personal life in a way that honors God, in a way that sets an example for others to follow. If we don't do that, then really, I just don't know that God cares nearly as much about how many things we've accomplished.
Yeah, we've got to be representing the life that we're calling people towards. And if we're representing a life that's a show or representing a life that's burnout or fraud or joyless, we don't have much to call people to.
Right.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking to hear it and see it.
And let me just say while I'm at it, and you're not asking me to do this in any way, shape, or form, but let me just tell you as someone who is older than you, at the risk of sounding paternalistic, I'm really proud of you that you have stewarded your calling so well, and the fact that you've been on a rocket ship of sorts for how many years now?
26. Yeah, 26.
So I just say to you, well done. Well done. Oh, man. Stay the course.
Get me all emotional here, Don.
Stay the course.
You're breaking with your brand of an insultant.
Well,
wow, that means a lot. Man, seriously, that means a lot.
Unfortunately, how many guys do we see, both in the church world as well as in the business world, whose lives are getting shipwrecked at 55, 60, 65 years old? The wheels are coming off, etc.
It's tough. Well, let's go there. How do you feel about your former friend, current right now? I don't know how you'd call him. Your boss, your co-laborer, Bill Hybels, who had things not ended differently here over the last few years, would have been included in the list of Jim Rayburn's and Bill Bright's and Hudson Taylor's, I believe. But he's had some scandals he chose not to answer to, and he chose not to speak to, which just leaves us with the understanding he's probably guilty of a good percentage of those things. This isn't like some gotcha podcast, but as a leader, how do you process that? I think it sucks. I'm going man, guy's had a big impact on me. Never got his last Easter sermon. Doesn't get to be pastor emeritus. Doesn't get to be called in to speak and save the day. All those things just like flushed down the toilet, just gone. That's weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm again a long way separated from it. I did run into Bill a few months ago.
Did you? Yeah. That's odd. Was he doing okay?
He was, actually Mary Ann and I and Kirk were out for dinner to celebrate her birthday, and we ran into him. So anyway, we had a nice chat for a while, and I thanked him. I said, Bill, I know some things have gone down. We don't need to get into all that. I said, I just want you to know that I thank God for you, and thank God for the impact that he had on my life through your life. Bill was a significant influence in my life, and I thank God for his involvement. As it relates to all that unfolded, again, I live in Orlando. I've been gone from Willow Creek for a long time now, and so I'm removed from the situation. I don't know the details of all that unfolded there. Obviously, as a church consultant for years and as a pastor, I have some understanding of what unfolds. And there are some things that I would have suggested they handle it differently, but.
Fascinating. So you just got to bump into them and you spent some time with them?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's really good. Well, what's also really cool to hear about that, talk about finishing well. I think one of the ways that we enable ourselves to have a good long haul is to really deal with bitterness really well. And, you and I had these conversations, a couple of decades ago. I felt like when you first left Willow that you had a little bit of bitterness there. You've obviously, if you did, you've obviously flushed that away. That's been long, because you couldn't last. Bitterness can't fuel you. And bitterness also would not enable you to have a charitable, positive conversation with somebody who actually did have a positive impact on you. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we all get hurt in life, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets hurt. Nobody gets through life without being hurt. The question is, what do you do with your hurt? And if you resolve your hurts and you allow them to be healed, God uses your hurts that are now healed to be a source of ministry to other people. And there was, when you have a separation, as I did when I left Willow, I left for many good reasons, but it wasn't easy when these are the people I've been with, in some cases, all my life. And when you say, "Hey, I'm leaving," I feel like I need to step out. Even though the reasons were good reasons, it's still difficult, and that's just the nature of life. Okay. And, so anyway, but,
there's a
God has healed it.
Praise God. That's fantastic. And that's a good caution and reminder of all of us. We're all going to be dealing with hurt, but you do touch on a kind of hurt that for those in our church audience, specifically our church staff audience, whatever small percentage that is, we found is true. It's just when you're on a church staff, there's no separation in your life. I like to tell people it's like one ball. I say, look, you're leaving corporate America right now. It's really nice. You got your corporate. If your corporate job sucks, it's okay because you're going to be clocked out. You're going to be home with your family. And if that's not going great, okay, well, you're going to be at church on the weekend, and then you have your friends. You have these different things to cycle in and out of. But when you're in church, like your friends have to be the people who are in your ministry. Your ministry is going to suck. You're not going to have volunteers, right? And your time with God is not a separate thing anymore. Now your time with God is part of your job. And if I don't do my time with God well, then I'm not doing my job well. But yet, how do I have private time with God and I don't think about the thing I have to say in the Bible study? And yet my friends is my work, is my job, is my church. I just can't go to church anymore and just have a me and God moment because no, this is my place of employment. It's very, very complicated and makes us very prone to be worn out and crushed.
Well, it's also the reason why, as a leader in the church, and as I tell my senior staff, and you know this to be true as well, we have to hire people very, very, very carefully, because if it doesn't work out for some reason, the implications are far greater than just a job, far greater, and therefore we need to make sure as we're hiring people that we are really doing our homework, making sure that God's in it, making sure that we're hiring somebody that's healthy emotionally and spiritually and relationally, because the downside is so complicated. If it doesn't work out, you just can't afford it.
Yep. And those things are tough. They're difficult.
Yeah.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Athletic Greens. It's a product I use every day. I started taking AG1 because I don't watch my diet too closely, but I know that I'm getting all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients I can, as well as hydrating with 12 ounces of water right off the bat at the beginning of the day. One scoop of AG1, it's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. And it doesn't taste like it. It actually tastes great. AG1 is a micro habit with big benefits. For less than $3 a day, you can take care of your health and invest in your future. It's recommended by professional athletes, health experts, and me. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packets with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/aggressive life. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/aggressive life to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance. So go get you some, and let's get back to the show. Man, I've tried a lot of different things to work out, and man, I found something, this company called 10,000. It fits my body really, really well. It's athletic. It's antimicrobial. It stretches really well. The shorts, the shirts. I like it a lot. It's really good. So if you're training for anything, a marathon, a big hunt, or just hitting the weights, you're going to want these clothes. You're going to want this gear. Get it now and save 15% off on your purchase. You can go to 10,000.cc and enter the code Aggressive Life. That's TENTHOUSAND.cc, and then enter the code Aggressive Life. Hopefully I don't have to spell that out for you too, and get yourself some 15% off. They offer free shipping, free returns, and a lifetime guarantee. This is the highest quality, best fitting, most comfortable training gear I've ever found, and I think that you're going to find as well. So go get yourself some, and I'll see you out there. So I got to ask, shifting gears here. Talk about stewardship.
Yeah.
And Kirk stewarding his life well. Is he stewarding some of the gravy that's coming his way and dropping some into your lap? I mean, do you get like a sports car out of this deal? Do you get like a second home someplace? Come on, Dad. He is where he is because of your DNA and your coaching. There's not like, it doesn't take you out to an expensive cruise vacation once a year. Come on, you got to get something. All of us want to know these things.
Well, he has a home in West Michigan that he built, and our family goes there for a couple weeks in the summer as a whole family, and then I get the month of July as a study break / vacation, and so I go stay at his home, and he doesn't charge me for that that time in his home.
Is he there? That's his main residence, or is one of his residences?
No, obviously he's in Minnesota through the whole football season, right. And then when he gets off after spring workouts before training camp, he'll get to this home in Michigan. But no, my wife, still flies for United Airlines.
Really?
And she's been flying for United for almost 40 years. And she's got friends who will say, "Why are you still flying? You have a son in the NFL." And she says, "Well, that's his job and his money, not my money and my job."
Right.
So anyway, no, Kirk is gracious to us, but no, I'm not driving a Corvette that Kirk gave me. Let's put it that way.
Well, if you were driving like a VW Bug, that'd be nice. Kirk Cousins, if you're listening right now, come on now, take care of your man.
Yeah,
No, I'm having fun. Okay, you mentioned finish line earlier on. You said you've got a finish line. Do you have an identified finish line to your current role as you see it right now? And are you telling people about that or not? No,
we're not there yet. I'm not planning to leave anytime soon. But it is a topic of discussion,
That's awesome.
If you will.
You're 66, and you're saying, "I'm not willing to leave anytime soon." I love that.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? How are you processing that, Don? Because I'm talking to you. I'm like talking to the Don that was 45. You're just 40. How old were you when we first met?
Well, I was 37 when I left Willow.
Okay, so late 30s.
About 40. Yeah.
I'm not talking to a guy who has any less energy or intensity than you did back then. Seriously, I could see it in your eyes. You were a clone. Your eyebrows are bushier because that happens to us as men. You got to stay on top of that. Trim those suckers more often.
I know.
But you're
I'm due for a haircut.
But you are just. You're on it, man. And how are you thinking through? I feel great. Feel as well as I ever have. But generally, as I age, the church ages. Is that part of your thought process? Is this to keep the church young? I have to, or try to get the church as young as possible. I've got to do X, Y, Z, or does that not even enter your mind?
It enters my mind. I got a couple of other guys on my teaching team. They're both in their early 40s. So they're younger. Obviously, we have a staff that is, runs the gamut with a lot of young people on our staff. And Brian, in terms of the church, I know you've got a diverse church. This is a very diverse church. We have young, old, male, female, black, white, Latino, Asian. It's tremendous. It's the most diverse church I've ever been a part of. And I think some of the young people kind of look at me as Yoda. They kind of say, there is some wisdom that comes with age. Obviously, I've got kids that are in their early 30s. Our daughter's 32, Kirk is 34, our oldest son Kyle is 36. And now they've got kids, 5 grandchildren with one more on the way. So the combination of relating to them, relating to my staff, who in many cases, almost every case is younger than me, I stay young and I stay in touch with young people, if you will. Yeah. Okay. And as long as the communication is relevant and conversational and applicable, and I can tell some stories about life at not only my age, but at a younger age, there is wisdom. I mean, I believe a better leader today than I was when I was 36 or 46 or even 56.
What's your workout routine?
I have a little club that I belong to, that I go work out, typically 3 days a week. And then the other days a week, I'm a runner. I've been sidelined recently by a little injury, but I've been running for 45 years.
So you're doing something physical 6 days a week?
Yeah, 5 to 6 days a week. Yeah, easily. Yeah.
All right. Dirt, I got to go work out after this because
I have to start.
Dirt, how many times are you working out a week right now?
Like once.
Yeah, but you're so svelte. It works for you because you never eat.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right, Don Cousins, are you ready for the lightning round? The lightning round is when I give you a topic and you fire like fast as lightning, okay. 1 or 2 sentences. Are you up for the challenge, Don Cousins?
I am. Give it to me.
Here we go. Most aggressive move you are making right now?
I'm trying to move the church to a greater degree of experiencing the power of the Holy Spirit.
All right. See, now I got to pause. See, you did it really well. Good job. Good job.
I'll put it this way, Brian. In the last 10 years at this church, because of the way that we are doing our prayer ministry, I have seen more healings in the past 10 years than I saw in all the years before then.
No,
we have an all-church prayer meeting. It happens 5 times a year. We have one this Thursday night. The last one we had 1,121 people attend prayer meeting.
Wow.
That's pretty good for a prayer meeting.
That is. That's fantastic. I was hesitating because you obeyed the rules really, really well of 1 to 2 sentences, but then you said something that's intriguing enough, like, okay, let's spend some more time here. Because this is one thing I don't think we've ever talked about here. I don't think we ever talked about the 2 words together, Holy Spirit. If we have, it's been just in passing. But I'm with you, man. I am personally experiencing a higher degree of interaction with the miraculous than I ever have.
Amen.
And I'm not sure how much of it is my faith has grown. I'm not sure how much I have new techniques. I don't know how much of it is just the age of our time, that people are more open. I don't know how much of it is that there's obviously more evil in the world, so the forces of God have amped up their activity. But I'll just give you one more recent, the last few months. I was praying for somebody that felt really, really sick, and I was praying for them. We had another person there. They put their hands on them. We were praying and asked their sickness would go away. And then I asked them the next day, feeling better? Not really. The other person who was there who had her hands on the guy, as she and her husband are driving home, she realizes that for the first time since she can remember, she has her hearing in her ear restored. And she says, "Thanks for praying for me. I got healed." I was like, "I don't remember praying for you. In fact, the guy I prayed for, nothing happened." So she said, "Well, the best I can discern, you pray that all things that aren't of you would be healed, and I have my hands on the guy, so maybe something from you went in there to me. All I know is I can't believe it. I can hear 100% for the first time."
Amen.
I'm personally experiencing more and more of those things.
Well, we're seeing a lot of it here. I say a lot of it. I'm seeing more of it than I ever have before, and prayer ministry here is a priority. I said to myself years ago, if I ever step into the role of being a lead pastor in the future, if I go back into the church of pastorate, and I'm in a position to be able to pull it off, I will make prayer ministry a priority. And so we have a prayer ministry. We have 140 people on our prayer team that are committed to intercessory prayer. As I said, we have this prayer meeting. We call it the gathering. The gathering is, if not the best thing we do, it's one of the top 3 things that we do. God shows up, Brian, in a powerful way. I don't want the wind of a fan. I want the wind of a hurricane. I can produce the wind of a fan. I just have to plug it in. I can't produce the wind of a hurricane. Only the Holy Spirit can produce the wind of a hurricane. What the church needs today and what our world needs today is the wind of a hurricane, not the wind of a fan.
So boost our faith. Tell us one of the miracles that you've experienced or your church has recently.
Well, we've had people heal of cancer. We've had people who were in stage 3, stage 4 cancer. They go into their doctor for a checkup and it's gone. Okay? We had a guy in our staff who's been through disability after disability after disability due to a number of different factors. He was told years ago that if we do this surgery on your brain, you got a 90% chance of dying. If we don't do this surgery on your brain, you got a 100% chance of dying. He not only lived, they had told him that he was going to be paralyzed. He's walking today. Now, he's blind. He's had some other infirmities, but he's alive today, and he's got a heart that is filled with joy. It's incredible.
That is incredible.
And so anyway, we've seen people who lost their hearing, who've had their hearing restored, people with back issues, chronic back issues, that, at the end of the night, this coming Thursday night after the end of the gathering, we will invite people to the front for healing prayer. And we'll have members of our prayer team praying for them. And not a gathering goes by when at least 1 or 2 or 3 stories don't surface of someone having come forward, was prayed for, and experienced a healing.
It's really a good push. We do at our camps, which is kind of our innovative, aggressive thing to do something different on the evangelism front. We have at all of our camps, couples camp, man camp, woman camp, vet camp, father-son camp, Chihuahua cat camp, all the different cats. All the different camps. We have very intensive prayer ministry. But when it comes into our sites, we're not as creative there. We have like monthly prayer nights. We got to think about doing fewer that are higher octane and a higher bar for excellence. And me being at all of them, like the ones in our sites, I'm just not. That's a good point.
Right.
All right, back to the lightning round, Don. Sorry, I won't do this with all these because I'm about out of time here. You're gonna have fun editing this. Here we go. Hardest leadership lesson you've had to personally learn.
Allowing hires that I wasn't sold on, that I let go through against my better judgment, that I later said, why didn't I listen to my own unrest? Because who you hire, who you put in leadership positions is so critically important that when you get the wrong leader in a spot, you end up paying for that in multiple ways.
Yes, true. All right, one more. Leader in history you most admire, and you can't say Jesus or anybody who wrote a portion of the Bible.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know that you can get by Abraham Lincoln in terms of historical. The guy was defeated in elections how many times before becoming president? 3, I think it was.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. I thought it was
might
like
have been more
7,
than 3.
something like that.
Okay. The fact that he kept persevering, and then he took on. Can you imagine today if we had a civil war breakout?
It's breaking out already. Yes.
Well, it is
without guns.
Yeah. And the fact that he presided, and then I was listening to the other day to a portion of an interview on the radio in which a man who's an expert on Thanksgiving. And he talked about the fact, he was talking about the original Pilgrims and all that in the historical context. But he talked about several presidents who actually gave proclamations of sorts related to Thanksgiving. Okay? But the one who made it official was Lincoln. Huh. And when he made it official, he made no compromise with the fact that we give thanks to the living God.
Interesting.
He was a man of incredible conviction. And when he believed something, nothing was going to rock his conviction. Okay? And although I'm not an expert in any way on Lincoln, I think it's remarkable that you stand strong in your convictions to the degree that you're willing to come up against whatever opposition for the sake of what you believe.
I've read a number of books about Lincoln, and I just read a couple months ago, I forgot about it. There's a new one coming up by an author I respect. I can't remember the author, but your answer makes me realize I'm going to Amazon that when we're done and not lock that down. That's good. All right, Don, is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
No, I think, Brian, I'm so encouraged at a distance with what has happened at Crossroads, with the fact that you're staying on the straight and narrow. If you're not, and you're fooling us, get back on the straight and narrow. No, but the fact that you're still there, that the church is prospering the way it is, that you're having the impact in Cincinnati, in the entire area, and beyond, to the degree that you are, I just want to say, well done, man. Stay the course. Stay the course, and let's finish strong, right? Let's finish strong. Let's not let anything. When you come to the end of your life, when any of us come to the end of our life, we want to be able to say what the Apostle Paul said, right? I finished the course. I've kept the faith. There's now a crown awaiting me. Okay. In other words, I won the game of life. Okay. That's what we want. And so steward your life in such a way that's going to enable you to say, I won the game of life.
Don, if I were to identify all the father figures in my life, I could put them on one hand, and you'd be one of those people, even though we haven't spent decades together on a week in, week out basis. I have the utmost respect for you. You have a spiritual weightiness about you, a gravitas about you. You've always had it. You have it right now. And so those words you give me, you tried doing it earlier, and I was kind of laughing about it. And when you just did it right then, I thought, no, I need to sit here and soak this in. So you mean a lot to me. I respect you and love you greatly. Thank you for making a deposit in my life and continuing to. You're setting a new course for me about how to finish and how far out to do it. So thank you, my friend. I love you very much.
Yeah. If I could, one of the things that I learned, Brian, if I can add this, in a 10-year time frame in which I believe God took me to the wilderness, okay, to teach me, all right? God transitioned me from a life like Martha of Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. And he transitioned me to live like Mary. And if you read those few verses there, it's when Jesus comes to their home with his disciples, and Martha's really busy in the kitchen serving. And Mary goes and positions herself in front of Jesus to sit at his feet. And Martha gets all upset, and she comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, why don't you, tell Martha to come and help me? I'm doing all this serving, da-da-da-da-da. And when you unpack that little story, Martha is frustrated, she's controlling, she's angry, she's self-pitying, she's all these different things, even though she loved Jesus. And Jesus says to her, Martha, Martha. It was only a handful of times when Jesus ever uttered a name twice. Simon, Simon, Satan has requested to sift you like wheat. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. When he looked over the city, you're like sheep without a
shepherd, yep.
Shepherd, right, okay. My God, why have you forsaken me? Okay. The common denominator in all of those references of a name twice is sorrow-filled affection. I love the person I'm talking to, but something is happening right now that makes me sad. Sorrow-filled affection. Okay? So he says to Martha, 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 what Mary has chosen is the best thing. and it will not be taken from her. Okay? The Lord spoke to me in the midst of those years and said, just like Martha, Don, you love me and you seek to serve me. But in order for you to bear more fruit with your life in the days to come, you need to become like Mary and learn to sit at my feet and live in response to my voice. And one of the things, Brian, over the last, couple decades of my life that the Lord has taught me to do is how to live in response to His voice. And that makes a world of difference when you live life in response to the voice of God. But it can't happen if you don't sit at the feet of Jesus to hear His voice. So in the busyness of life and in the busyness of serving and all that life, the responsibilities of life, make sure you take time to sit at the feet of Jesus so that you can live in response to His voice.
Well said. Thank you for the counsel. You're a good man. But it's great. Time has flown. I don't know if it was good for anybody else, but it was good for me. That's all that matters. As long as it's good for me, that's all that matters. Don, is there anything else you want to point people to? This is your time to give an advertisement. You got a book you want to shoot people to, a website, yada, yada?
No. I got.
No. I'm 66. I'm doing what I want. I don't need you to buy any of my wares. That's so good. I love it.
Yeah, Skol.
Skol. You don't choose Skol.
No, Vikings. Skol.
Oh, Skol. Okay. I was gonna say. I would have had a chew with you at some point. I didn't know you do.
I don't chew. I don't chew.
All right. Hey, boys and girls, men and women, come on. This is called the aggressive life. There's something here that you and I need to do differently. Maybe you need to be a mother figure. Maybe you need to be a father figure. Maybe you need to get serious about your workout plan. Maybe you need to repent of the idea of retiring and going to Florida, and maybe you need to repent of being about yourself. Maybe you need to change your opinion of what a life of power is. I don't know what it is. There's something here. You just drank from a very, very deep well. So there's something here for you to do. This is not called the think about interesting things life. This is called the aggressive life. Take control of it, put it into action. Thank you, Don. We'll see you next time on the Aggressive Life.
Thank you.
That's good, dude. I don't know what you expected. I hope that was good for you.
It was good for me. Yeah. Well, your guys were kind enough to send me some questions, although you didn't touch on many of them.
I know.
That's fine.
I did not. I didn't look at any of it. I knew it was going to be the way it was, and I know this guy, and it's good. So
no, thank you. And I really am proud of you. Well done, man. Stay the course. I just at a distance, I hear so many good things about what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Don. Again, your encouragement, it does mean a lot, not just because your father figure role, because you're in a similar job.
Well, one of the questions that was on the sheet here was, let me look it up here real quick. You said, what do you remember about those early conversations?
Oh, yeah. And what do you remember?
What I do remember, and I'll put it to you this way, I call it the double H effect. Double H effect is humble and hungry. As long as you're humble and hungry, you got the right balance going, okay? And Brian, in those days, you were humble in the sense that you were coachable, teachable, inquisitive, always asking questions, always considering things, even outrageous things that I said to you. Let me think about that. There was not a pride or an arrogance with the way that you conducted yourself. There was a true humility. I hope that's still true today. Okay, I sense it is. Okay, there was a humility there that is just so important. Okay, at the same time, you were really hungry and really committed and really passionate, and you were getting after it, and you were wanting to build a great church, and God had given you a big vision, and you were wanting to build the right kind of team and get the right people on the team. And so you were laser focused on what you were called to do. And I think the combination of being humble and hungry has borne itself out over the years with the fruitfulness of the ministry that you're engaged in. And I hope you're still humble and hungry today.
That's really good, Don. I believe I am, but I'll tell you what I notice is I think the older I've gotten, the harder both of those things are. I mean, because you get some successes, so you start feeling like, hey, I'm not just grasping for straws in the dark like I was when I was 30 when we were meeting together, 32, whatever it was. So you start to get some success, so you have more knowledge you did, so that kind of hurts the humility thing. And then the hungry thing, I don't know that I am as hungry. Like, my hunger way back when was we need a building, we need a new site. Doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. We're going to do it. We're going to freaking do it. Put your head down. I don't care. Get a bigger mortgage. Yeah. We'll pay it off. Right. It'll happen. We're going to go. And then you get older and like, I don't know. I'm still hungry. I'm just not sure if that. I don't know if I'm as abandoned to things. I don't know. Now I'm just processing with you for you to just tell me what you hear, what you think.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would tell you, be hungry for God. If you're hungry for God, another key passage for me during my wilderness years is the story in Luke 7 about the woman who, the prostitute who comes into the home of Simon the Pharisee and falls at Jesus' feet and wipes his feet with her tears and her hair. You know the story, okay? I was sitting in a hotel room one morning, and I felt a brokenness inside, and I couldn't figure out why. And I read that story, and I asked myself the question as I read it, what would cause this woman to do this? What would cause a woman of ill repute to come into the home of a Pharisee at a dinner party, make her way to the feet of Jesus, and make an absolute fool of herself? What would cause her to do that? And the answer that came to mind was she was desperate for Jesus. And what the Lord said to me that morning was, Don, there are some things that you're desperate for, but you're more desperate for them than you are for me. And what needs to happen is you need to be less desperate for some of those things, and you need to be desperate for me. And I began to pray that morning for a sense of desperation for Jesus. And so, you know, I'm not hungry anymore, if you will, to build a big church. I'm not hungry to, you know, that kind of stuff. Just, you know, I've kind of been there, done that, okay? I am hungry for Jesus. I am hungry for more of an outpouring of the anointing of God. I am hungry for that. And you asked me earlier, you know, what keeps you younger? I guess that's what keeps me younger, is I'm hungry for more of God.
Yeah, that's a good word. I'm kind of ashamed of myself. I just went directly to the practical organizational standpoint and talking about hunger,
fine.
you know, but
no, it's fine.
Yeah. No,
that's fine.
But even,
I guess what I'm telling you is if you're hungry, if we're hungry for God, such that we seek Him with a sense of hunger, He then speaks to us about that which we need to do in the realm of the practical.
Yeah, that's good. Hungry and humble.
Yep. So anyway, thanks for the time. I'm honored that you asked.
Yeah.
So
well, you build into a lot of people, man.
So thank you. So keep up the good work, my friend. Keep
All
up
right.
the good work.
You too, right? Mr. Oak of Righteousness.
And listen.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. If you screw up, man, I'm going to fly to Cincinnati. And I'm going to kick your behind, okay?
You can't even say ass, can you? You can say ass. Come on, let me hear you say kick your ass. Come on, Don.
It's just not in my vocabulary. So listen, you stay on the straight and narrow, okay? And you finish strong, okay?
I will. All right, Don. I love you, buddy. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. For all things aggressive living, why don't you head over to briantome.com. Find my new book, Move, a guide to get up and go forward, as well as articles and much, much more. And no matter where you listen to podcasts, why don't you take a second and leave us a rating, leave us a review. It really, really helps us drive new listeners to the show. We want to help as many people as possible, just like we may have helped you. We want to help others. So why don't you help us out? And if you want to connect, find me on Instagram, @BrianTome. Aggressive Life with Brian Tome is a production of Crossroads Church, Cincinnati, Ohio.